In case you missed it, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. put on his own debate where he answered the same questions as Trump and Biden and spliced himself in the middle. This is part 6 of me fact-checking him throughout the debate. And for this one, we're talking all about the Ukraine-Russian war. I'm gonna roll the clip and I'm gonna fact-check right after.
What if Putin says, just let us keep the territory we have and don't have Ukraine join NATO? Acceptable?
That is Putin's, right now, his opening bargaining position. Putin has been asking to settle this war from the beginning. In fact, he agreed to 2 separate treaties, the Minsk Accords, in 2019, which Zelensky ran in 2019 and ran promising to sign the Minsk Accords. And really the only thing Putin wanted was to keep NATO out of the Ukraine. He then, in 2022, right after he first invaded with only 40,000 troops, when President Biden said there is absolute baloney, President Putin did not go into Ukraine intending to conquer Europe. He only sent 40,000 troops. It's a nation of 44 million people. He didn't even want to take Ukraine. He wanted us back at the negotiating table. Zelensky asked the United States to help him negotiate a treaty with Putin. And Biden administration said no. Zelensky then went and asked Israel, and Naftali Bennett, the former prime minister, said yes, and Erdogan in Turkey said yes, and they negotiated a beautiful treaty in Istanbul in April of 2022. They signed the treaty. The one thing that Putin wanted was that we didn't put NATO in Ukraine. He didn't want to conquer Europe. And they signed it. Putin was withdrawing his troops, leaving Donbass and Lugansk. And what happened? President Joe Biden sent Boris Johnson over to Kiev and forced Zelensky to tear up that agreement because they had another agenda, which is to weaken Russia. President Trump was part of it. President Trump gave the first $1.3 billion to Ukraine in 2017 of the first offensive weapons. He then sent Mike Pompeo over there in 2019 to say that we're going to put NATO there. So, and then he walked away from the intermediate range nuclear treaty with Russia unilaterally. We had a nuclear weapons treaty that we wouldn't put intermediate missiles in Ukraine or the other former Soviet satellite states. And President Trump walked away from it. So the two of them are equally culpable in the provocations that led to this war. And I'm not excusing Putin. Putin didn't need to go into Ukraine. And he should be held responsible too. But we need to look at our responsibility, and it falls both on the backs of President Trump and President Biden.
That was a lot, I know. This literally took me all day to research because he packed so much into 2 minutes. I just want to tell you I'm going to go through 5 of his claims within that clip, and 4 of them are true and 1 of them is false. A lot of this is very heavy stuff, so I'm going to try to narrow it down and simplify it as much as I can. So here's claim 1. He said Putin has been asking to settle this war from the beginning. In fact, he agreed to 2 separate treaties, the Minsk Accords in 2019. Which Zelensky ran in 2019 and ran promising to sign the Minsk Accords. And this is true. According to Geopolitical Economy, Zelensky ran to do just that. Bear with me because I feel like my lisp is really coming out today, but he ran saying that he wanted to sign the Minsk Accords and he wanted to get peace and get a ceasefire. The next thing that Kennedy said was, quote, President Putin did not go into Ukraine intending to conquer Europe. Here's the thing. This is true from what Putin said in the Tucker Carlson interview with him. Are any of us actually going to know? We're not Putin. We don't know what he's thinking. But this is what was said in the Tucker Carlson interview. Tucker said, quote, well, the argument is, I know you know this, is that, well, he invaded Ukraine. He has territorial aims across the continent. And Putin responded with, quote, it is absolutely out of the question. You just don't have to be any kind of analyst. It goes against common sense to get involved in some kind of global war. Claim number 3, Kennedy said this. They negotiated a beautiful treaty in April of 2022. They signed the treaty. The one thing that Putin wanted was that we didn't put NATO in Ukraine. He didn't want to conquer Europe. They signed it. Putin was withdrawing his troops. And what happened? President Joe Biden sent Boris Johnson over to Kiev and forced Zelensky to tear up that agreement. I found numerous sources saying this is true. I always get nervous researching stuff that is across the globe because they don't have the same sources as the US. So I made sure to find at least 2-3 sources that confirm this. The European Conservative states, quote, Russia was ready to end the war and withdraw its troops in exchange for Ukrainian neutrality just a few months after the invasion began and was refused partly because of ex-British PM Boris Johnson, unquote. Now, drum roll please, because I think this is the first one where Kennedy was actually wrong. He said, quote, President Trump was part of it. President Trump gave the first $1.3 billion to Ukraine in 2017 of the first offensive weapons. According to Defense News, $1.5 billion was sent between 2014 and 2019. So yes, some of the money was sent under Trump, but some of it was also sent under Obama. And it's very interesting because Trump was actually impeached because he tried to withhold $400 million that was supposed to go to Ukraine that Congress approved. Ultimately, he ended up sending the money and it was for something unrelated on why he was holding it. I don't see any evidence that Trump intentionally sent Ukraine all of this money. For the final claim, Kennedy said, then he walked away from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Treaty with Russia, and he's referring to Trump doing that. That's true, and according to BBC, the US formally withdrew from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty in 2019. Say that 5 times fast. Now, there was a little bit of a scandal with that one. Like, yes, the US broke the treaty. Russia apparently used missiles that they weren't supposed to. That was against the treaty. Russia said, no, we didn't. US said, yes, you did. That's what I have for you for this one. I know it was a lot. Thank you for hanging in there if you came this far. Remember, all my sources are on my website, and don't mind my office. I am probably not going to be able to finish it until after this series is done. I'm not getting the rest of my hexagons until Wednesday. As always, let me know your thoughts and make sure you're following me for more.